A similar form of helping exists in bottlenose dolphins. Dolphins are notoriously difficult to study in the wild, but work by Connor, Cretson, and others has documented instances of males helping males to keep reproductive females nearby. Alliances of 2 to 3 males will help each other to keep a female from leaving their group. These male alliances appear to remain stable over years, offering opportunity for reciprocal altruism. It is presently unclear what cognitive processes might underlie the reciprocity among alliance-forming baboons and dolphins, and whether individuals remember specific personal interactions with those who helped them over long time periods. A simpler interpretation might be that when helped, an individual assigns a positive value to the helping individual, and that subsequent behavioral decisions, approach, affiliate, or defend, are made on the basis of that positive association. Helping behavior is also seen in relation to the outcomes of mating, taking care of offspring. This behavior, often termed cooperative breeding, refers to situations in which individuals, who are not parents themselves, are actively engaged in raising others' offspring. It is a behavior seen in about 9% of bird species, including the western bluebird, which has been the focus of much research, figure 11.2. In this species, a small proportion of breeding pairs are helped by a related male, mostly sons and brothers. Help by feeding the nestlings and defending the nest increases the breeding success of the pair, yet many studies have suggested that the inclusive fitness benefits of helping do not actually make up for not breeding independently, raising the question of how this behavior might have evolved. To address this question, Charmantier and colleagues 2007 recently used a genetic analysis of 1,593 breeding individuals and found that helping behavior was a heritable trait. In turn, this means that in this species, individuals who once helped others and now have broods of their own have a good chance of being the recipients of help by their relatives, e.g., a son from a previous brood helping with a new brood. At a proximate level, it is possible that the observation of helping behavior by relatives plays a role by leading to social learning of the behaviors. See Chapter 13. For example, a member of a brood who was helped may help a new brood in the future. Figure 11.2, the western bluebird, a cooperative breeding species. In some instances, breeding pairs are helped at the nest by a related male. Box 11.2, interspecific mutualism. The term mutualism has traditionally been used to describe situations in which unrelated individuals simultaneously benefit from an interaction. To distinguish mutualism from reciprocity, consider the difference between these two phrases, you scratch my back and I'll scratch your back, reciprocity, and you scratch my back while I scratch your back, mutualism. Note also that different from the definition of cooperation that is used in this chapter, here the behaviors of the two individuals are not necessarily directed toward a joint goal that is held in common. One of the best and most studied examples of mutualism is a case of interspecific mutualism in which two different species are each benefiting from an interaction. Cleaner fish and their clients, figure 11.3. Cleaner fish eat the ectoparasites found on the surfaces of other fish, clients, who, in turn, benefit from the parasite removal. The clients are of another species and are often larger and potentially predatory, yet these clients let the cleaner fish approach and feed off of their surface, even allowing the cleaners to dart in and out of their mouths. The benefits of the interaction are both simultaneous and mutual, a meal for the cleaner and a healthy cleaning for the client. One can see how the helping behavior of the cleaner, removing dangerous parasites that the client cannot remove otherwise, and the tolerant behavior of the client could evolve. Both behaviors have adaptive value. Figure 11.3, an example of a cleaner-client relationship. Here, striped cleaner wrasse clean a potato cod. The cleaner-client mutualistic interactions are also characterized by partner control and partner choice. In one well-studied pair, cleaner wrasse and Australian reef fish, cleaners sometimes cheat by eating the client's mucus, which is preferred over the parasites. The clients, however, find this aversive and may react in two ways. Sometimes clients punish by going on the attack, chasing and driving the cleaners away, partner control. Clients may also engage in behavior that exhibits partner choice, such as swimming away and finding other cleaners. In fact, partner choice is also evidenced by observations of clients preferentially approaching cleaners who were previously observed cleaning other fish without conflict. These cleaners evidently developed something like a prosocial reputation by being associated with peaceful interactions. Providing information. The transmission of information to an individual who requires it can be thought of as a helpful act. Even young children label individuals who provide them with information to help solve a puzzle as helpful, and they selectively help these individuals in subsequent interactions over individuals who have withheld information. Chapter 12 will detail instances across many species in which a member of a group forgoes eating and instead watches for predators, emitting an alarm call that functions to warn others of danger if necessary. This act of informing seems much more costly than simply providing the answer to a child's puzzle. In order to stand guard, one is missing out on food intake, and emitting the alarm might direct the predator's attention to oneself. Traditionally, it was suggested that the behavior evolved through kin selection or reciprocal altruism. Another individual may switch positions and take over the watch. This is likely the case for some species of dwarf mongooses, in which members regularly risk predation when on guard duty, but other mechanisms may be in place for other species. In meerkats, for example, the potential costs and benefits of providing information have been examined by researchers such as Clutton Brock and his colleagues. Some members of the meerkat group serve as sentinels, watching for danger while other group members eat. At least in this species, though, the dangers of acting as a sentinel actually may be less than the danger for those distracted by foraging. Additionally, there is no evidence of reciprocal altruism, as there is no pattern of rotation for sentinels. Instead, what seems to occur is that satiated members of the group guard when they are done eating. It is the optimal activity since they are actually less vulnerable when on guard. A remaining question is how to interpret the fact that sentinels who observe a predator will produce a call, which potentially is costly to themselves due to predator detection. The researchers suggest that this may be the one aspect of the sentinel behavior that is driven by kin selection or reciprocity. Helping in the laboratory. In the previous examples, naturally occurring helping behavior was discussed. Among a suite of behaviors any one species might typically enact in the wild, one or two may seem to stand out to observers as instances of helping. Yet, when one thinks of human behavior, one can think of all types of helping acts, and can even imagine helping occurring in a completely novel situation, as long as the potential helper has the knowledge and physical ability to enact a solution. One of the possible reasons for this is that many acts of helping require complex social cognition and a good understanding of the physical world. At least for humans, the assumption is that the observer must recognize the failed intention of another individual and devise an effective solution. Warrican and Tomasello, 2006, have compared the helping behavior of captive chimpanzees and 18-month-old children in novel laboratory situations, with particular focus on the ability to recognize another individual's instrumental need. 1.5-year-old infant. Importantly, the study included experimental trials in which an actor was in need of help and control trials that were superficially similar, but no need was present. For example, subjects would see an actor reach out for a faraway object in an experimental trial, yet in a control trial, the actor simply looked at the out-of-reach object with a neutral expression. Both chimpanzees and children helped by retrieving the object for the actor in the experimental conditions, but refrained from picking up the object when no need was present. Figure 11.4. This is not behavior that has been observed in the wild, yet suggests that at least captive chimpanzees will respond to others when there is instrumental need, even without immediate benefit to themselves. There are some limitations, though. Chimpanzees did not show as many helping actions as the toddlers, e.g. opening doors, which may indicate that in those situations, the actor's need and/or the solution was not immediately apparent. Figure 11.4, an example of helping behavior in the laboratory. Both chimpanzees and children will help by retrieving an object for an actor, but will refrain from picking up an object when no need is present. Follow-up laboratory studies have shown that chimpanzees will help other chimpanzees by unlocking a door to allow them access to a room with food. The helper did not see or receive the food. Additionally, chimpanzees will provide needed tools to other chimpanzees. In this study, chimpanzees in adjacent enclosures were presented with food puzzles that required a specific type of tool. However, in some cases, each subject was provided with the other subject's required tool. The chimpanzees were more likely to swap tools when they were given the wrong tools than in conditions in which they were provided with the correct tools. For any of these studies, though, a question remains as to how the underlying cognitive processes of the helper might be characterized. Consider the distinctions made in Chapter 10. Are the chimpanzees recognizing the intentions that cause the actor's behavior, e.g. he wants the out-of-reach toy? Or are they making decisions based solely on representations of behavioral contingencies and regularities without reference to mental states? Unfortunately, as detailed in Chapter 10, there is currently no resolution to this debate. Whichever manner in which they represent the behavior, though, what is particularly intriguing is that the helping chimpanzees seem to be subsequently motivated to act on the behalf of others. Some researchers have proposed that certain animals may have a sense of empathy that motivates helping behavior. For example, in a carefully controlled study, Bartel and colleagues 2011 found that rats will open a restrainer for a trapped rat that is emitting alarm calls and trying to escape. In control conditions, empty restrainers or restrainers holding a toy rat were opened at significantly reduced rates. The authors propose that rats freed their trapped cage mates as a means of ending the cage mates' distress or even their own distress. If this is true, it would seem that the rats recognized the distress calls and also came to the solution that opening the restrainer would end the distress. Yet how would they come upon that particular solution? Over trials, helping rats may have learned the contingency between the door opening and the cessation of distress, which could occur with or without attention to the actions of the trapped rat itself. Of course, considering helping behavior as a response to overt distress is specific to this type of experimental paradigm. In the tasks above in which chimpanzees received an out-of-reach object for an actor, distress cues were not present, yet the subjects readily helped. It would appear that more work on the cues that encourage helping behavior across species is warranted. Further, the concept of empathy in animals has itself garnered a lot of attention, and this topic will be more fully discussed later in this chapter. Sharing. When vampire bats give part of their blood meal to a hungry conspecific, or when human adults give a portion of a monetary endowment to someone else, the prosocial behavior consists of giving some of one's own material resources to benefit another individual who is in need. Sharing is, in fact, one of the more commonly studied prosocial behaviors in humans, particularly with economic games, but there are also some instances of this behavior in animals. In this section, naturally occurring sharing behavior in animal species, specifically the sharing of food, will be considered, followed by laboratory experiments using economic games with humans and other animals. Food sharing. It may seem surprising, but great apes do not show the greatest similarity with humans in terms of the propensity for sharing, particularly food sharing. Instead, species that engage in cooperative breeding are more likely to engage in food sharing than those who breed more independently. In cooperative breeders, including some species of birds, callitrichid monkeys, figure 11.5, and social carnivores, such as meerkats, not only do members of the group who have no offspring help other members defend offspring as mentioned above, but they also share food with these offspring. Similarly, humans are cooperative breeders, Family members such as older siblings, aunts and uncles, as well as grandparents often engage in the care of infants and, of course, often share food. In contrast, the great apes raise offspring in a much more independent manner than humans, and they seldom engage in food sharing, even among kin. This pattern of observations has led some to propose that prosocial behavior, such as food sharing, may be explained by convergent evolution among species with larger kin networks. Figure 11.5, Pygmy marmosets. In this small New World monkey, some individuals help in the care of others' offspring and engage in food sharing. What cognitive mechanisms might underlie food sharing? The act of sharing should be directed toward those in need of a resource, and thus a sensitivity to need would be necessary. In some cases, this sensitivity might be built in reflexively, as a response to a signal, e.g. an open mouth at the nest. In other cases, reading a need might require more cognitively complex abilities, such as instances in which the potential recipient is showing no outward signals, yet previous history and/or assumptions about his beliefs and desires lead to the representation of need. These distinctions have led some researchers like Jagay and colleagues 2010 to propose different forms of sharing: proactive, offering food in the absence of any form of begging; reactive, sharing in response to signals of need; and passive, simply allowing or tolerating others to take one's own food. At least among primates, only human and callitrachid species have thus far been observed to engage in proactive food sharing. For the latter, parents and other individuals in the group give food calls and then offer food to infants. In future research, the cognitive processes underlying sharing behavior may be elaborated by our growing knowledge of the underlying biological mechanisms. See, for example, box 11.5. Dictator games. As discussed in section 11.1, sharing of material resources by humans is often studied in the laboratory with games such as the ultimatum game and a variant, the dictator game. The dictator game is quite similar to the ultimatum game, except that the recipient of the endowment does not have the opportunity to reject offers as he or she does in the ultimatum game. Behavior during the two games is similar as well. Typically, proposers allocate 20 to 30% of their cash to the other player. Games such as these are useful for examining sharing behavior in animals because subtle manipulations in the task allow for insight into the underlying motivation and cognitive processes. Relatedly, researchers may have greater control over and knowledge of past interactions among the animals and the level of genetic relationship. Most of the research in this area has been completed with primates, particularly chimpanzees, with the goal of understanding the evolutionary forces that shaped human sharing behavior. Silk and colleagues 2005, for example, created a game scenario for pairs of chimpanzees that had a similar structure to the dictator game. A proposer chimpanzee had access to a machine that, dependent on the experimental condition, could be made to deliver food to the proposer and the recipient, or only one of them. In a condition in which proposers were presented with the choice of one handle that forced the machine to provide food to both the proposer and the recipient, and another handle for which food would only be delivered to the proposer, a generous response would be to choose the first lever. Yet, there was no evidence that chimpanzees would systematically choose the handle that provided food to the other chimpanzee, and further, there was no evidence that the handle choice differed between conditions in which a recipient was actually present or if the adjoining room was empty. Similar findings have since been obtained repeatedly in experiments with slightly altered designs. These findings generated much discussion, with questions centered on why sharing behavior was not more prevalent, especially since some evidence of passive sharing behavior has been documented for wild chimpanzees. It is possible that chimpanzees did not fully understand the experimental apparatus. However, some studies included conditions designed specifically to determine whether chimpanzees understood how the apparatus worked, and while it seemed they did understand, sharing behavior was still not seen. Confusing matters all the more is that even cooperatively breeding primates do not systematically choose options that provide others with food in this experimental paradigm, marmosets and tamarins. Indeed, across 5 primate species, studies using this task never clearly show instances of the provision of food to another individual, even when doing so is at no cost to the donor. Although these studies are difficult to interpret, researchers have continued their work. In fact, recent studies hint that perhaps one aspect of the experimental design might play an important role. When food is not present and chimpanzees are in a position to choose a token indicating a prosocial choice versus a token associated with a selfish choice, they systematically choose the prosocial option. In the next section, other task designs will be presented that were created with the aim of examining factors that might influence sharing behavior.